First News with Keeler in the morning on WIBX and WIBX950.com.
Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.
Joe Cardinale is a retired NYPD lieutenant commander and is on the line right now. Joe, good morning.
Good morning.
Just wanted to talk to you a little bit about, if we could, what's going on, how difficult it is for police officers today. Being somebody who's a retired police officer, what are these officers going through today? And this certainly is not a great way to recruit new police officers.
Well, you hit that right on the head. Recruitment for New York City right now, they actually had to extend the filing deadline because they're not getting enough people to even take the test, let alone fill the jobs. Nobody wants the job anymore under these conditions. I mean, at one time, this was like the most coveted job to go into the NYPD. And right now, they're running away from the job. I mean, the retirement rate is out the window. People putting their papers in, they're losing. And when you lose the upper echelon of the police, I'm not talking about the bosses and everything. I'm talking about the good cops that put the years in,
experience,
teach the younger cops. Exactly, the experienced cops. That's gone. So you're starting with really no experience, and there's nobody to pass the torch on to. So it's a very dangerous and difficult time for police officers, not only in New York City but across this country.
How, and I understand, and I do think it's complex. There are some terrible stories that we've seen, some terrible visuals. The George Floyd was a terrible visual. How do you account for that? What do you say about that?
You know, each incident, I mean, there are times, and I'm going to be honest with you, I've seen some videos that make me cringe. You know, I'm like, oh, my God, how can somebody do that? You know, it makes the rest of us look bad. But we're talking about incidents that are really isolated in my mind and in everybody else's mind. Yeah. And once they're isolated, and they make it a national, cry for injustice against certain individuals. And I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't work that way.
Split
decisions.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We have to make split decision decisions. Yep. And we have to sit back and say, what am I going to do? Do I do this? Do I shoot this person? These decisions made at the spur of the moment, given the situation. Yeah. Then it goes wrong, and the rest of your life as a police officer is ruined. Yeah. Right. And probably it doesn't make sense. Here's one thing I could tell you. Yes. They want police reform, but actually what they really want is police conformity. All right. They want them to conform to whatever the politicians dictate for that day. All right. That's what it is. But there are things that I think you're going to see nationwide that are going to change, and that's with the use of deadly physical force by police officers. I think you're going to see some kind of uniformity on that level, because in New York City it's different than down south and some of the cities down there on the use of deadly physical force. So I think once they come to an agreement once they come to a definition of it, you're going to see things change a little bit. And
if I could just ask you, the difference is we don't use deadly force. I mean, you try to de-escalate a situation. There are things that police officers do. For instance, in New York, that might happen with some of these stories we're seeing out of the South and other places around the country.
Well, one of the examples I can give you for that, you're right. One of the examples I can give you is using deadly physical force with, say, a fleeing felon. They're now on some of the cities. They're on the books for the laws that you can shoot at a fleeing felon. Yeah. In New York City, it's got to be that the fleeing felon is posing a threat to you. In other words, he's using deadly physical force on you, is or about to use on you or another individual. And you can't even say the car. If they're trying to hit you with the car, that doesn't count over here as well. So here's the trend that I think you're going to see. You go on a warrant, and that individual takes off, and he doesn't have a gun, and he just takes off in the car, and he swerves and tries to, and you're going to get that individual another day.
Yeah.
But change that scenario to somebody fleeing and firing at the police while he's fleeing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different. It changes the whole atmosphere of what they're doing right now. So you have to take it by each case. I think.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I have to ask. It does seem that there came a point where some police agencies around the country, the policy came: shoot first, ask questions later. And based on some of these stories that we've seen, I don't believe it's that way. It's certainly not that way here, upstate, and in New York City. Do you agree that that's at some point we made a turn?
Oh, we absolutely made a turn. And what happens is when you bring, attention there, let me tell you a falsehood, by the way. I know Geraldo had said on one of his shows that he wants an accountability. He wants to know about all these shootings that aren't there. He's so wrong when he said something like that.
Yep.
The FBI does keep statistics on this, and they do analyze it, and they do make recommendations. It's up to that municipality to change it the way they see it.
Yeah.
What they do in Utica may not be the same thing what they do in Rochester, all right? But in New York State as a whole, we do conform to state law, all right? And that's what's going to happen nationwide. But the problem you're going to have is you're going to have a national police force, which is so wrong. You cannot have each incident bookmarked for the next time, because the next time it's going to change. And people have to understand how complex police work is.
You got to let this is very much like war. You have to let, like the military, you have to let the people who are in that scenario on the ground be able to make decisions based on what's currently happening, what the scenario is, right?
Exactly. And, I've been in the situations where you have to make a decision, and I've never killed anybody, but I'm telling you right now, I said this on many shows, do you actually think, and this is something your listeners have to really take into their heart, regardless of your background, do you actually think any cop on any given day gets up and says, today's a great day for me to go out and kill somebody? I just want to put that uniform on. It doesn't work that way. Think of the calls we're called to, all right? Think of the cops with their names on the wall in Washington, D.C., that just keeps growing.
I know.
All right?
Yeah.
And not once do the politicians make a phone call to I'm not talking about individual politicians. I'm talking about Washington, D.C.
Yes.
All right? The leadership has created such a divide between the police and the community that it's going to do a lot more damage unless they bring them closer together. You cannot work without the community, and the community cannot exist without the police department.
Well, when you're afraid, when you're worried about your child, when there's a noise outside, when something terrible is happening, who do you call? You call the police. And how did we get from the point where the police? I was brought up to believe police are good, and I understand that there are different cultures in America right now where that doesn't happen. But how did we make this change where the police are bad all of a sudden?
Well, the change came about with politics, all right? Yeah. When you have, if you have a certain ethnic group that wants to get out there and say, we've been wronged and everything and this and that, and you have proof of that, so change, all right? Let the police department conform to certain things, all right? And you change with that. You evolve with the community. But when you get to a point that we're at right now where there's a total disregard for police, we just buried one of our officers here in New York City. Mm-hmm. We had a 3 and 6-year-old children, and the person that killed him was just on a podcast doing a rant about blank the police and everything else and drinking on the podcast. All right, and then goes out and kills him, and we really feel it's intentional. She went out, saw him, and had such a rage that she aimed the car for him. That's what it may not be that way, but this is what we feel, because this is the point we've come to right now in policing in America. When you have a total disregard for the first line of defense that is there to protect not just that community, it's a broader protection that goes nationwide, especially with all the terrorist activity and everything. And New York City is the prime example for that. You take away from that, and you have police officers second-guessing themselves, and that's the most dangerous thing you can do.
And you have a mayor right now that, in order to keep everybody happy, is just kind of piling on and seems to be making things worse at a time when he probably should be defending police. I would think Jeff with a question.
Yeah, it was just, I was going to comment on along the lines of what you were talking about, that recent shooting involving the two women who were fighting, or I think they were teens, but one was approaching the other one with a knife. Within an arm's length of her. And the officer shows up, and I think it's within like 8 seconds. He gets out of the car, right? And it's, I can understand to say, why wouldn't you shoot him in the leg? And I know that's not what's taught, but to second guess that decision in moments where he sees somebody about to get murdered and to question, why did you shoot the other person? It's like, are you kidding? If that was your little cousin who was 15, wouldn't you want the cop to shoot that person?
Joe, what would have happened if he didn't do anything and the girl stabbed the other girl and that girl died? It'd be the cop's fault there.
Oh, he'd be all over the news for being a coward and not taking the right police action and everything. Listen, at that moment, that cop made a decision to save a life. All right, to save somebody else's life. All right, he did not put the knife in that girl's hand. She took it upon herself. They went to defuse the situation. He gets there and he sees the knife raised above, ready to plunge into this girl, and he made a decision, and he made the right decision to save that girl's life. Had he taken the advice, don't shoot to kill, shoot to maim. Okay, so you shoot her in the leg, and she still, with her momentum, goes forward and plunges the knife in. There are so many different scenarios. Guys, I would love to see any politician go into the shoot, don't shoot scenario that they put in the police department. Go on the film and just do that one. Walk through the house and do the shoot, don't shoot, and you'll come out of there like one reporter did many years ago and said, I'll never second-guess a cop again, because it's not a minute, 2 minutes, it's a split-second decision.
How would the average person without training make that decision? You wouldn't be able to.
Exactly. And with the training, it still changes every day.
Sure.
And here's something else that happens. There is no definition of what a police department does anymore because it changes daily. It changes with the political atmosphere out there. It changes with who wants votes for what group. I need to go into the Bronx and get the votes over here so I can do this, so I'm going to rip the police apart. And then the next day, this mayor that we're speaking about goes to the funeral of a slain police officer, and with crocodile tears goes over and says, "Oh, this is such an injustice and everything." You created this. And the rest of the politicians that fuel these hate speeches and everything else. You're the one who creates this. All right, and then you have the audacity to go on,
show up,
and make a speech.
And you're in the middle of a mayoral election right now, so chances are they're all going to be saying stuff to get elected, and it's not going to get any better. So I feel for you. Do you have a book or social media? How do we follow you, Joe?
Well, actually, I've been with Fox for about 20 years now, and I've just been doing that. I haven't done. I don't do social media, believe it or not. I have not done social media because I can't stand it. I like to keep things real, and like anybody ever wants me to go on and speak, I've been doing it for, like I said, 20 years since I retired.
All right,
and it's just keep my number. You ever need me to speak on something, I'm glad to do it.
We will definitely do that, Joe. We appreciate Joe Cardinale, retired NYPD. Thank you for your service, and thanks for coming on today. It was great.
Thank you, guys. Anytime.
Hey, guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players. Pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, PrizePicks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the PrizePicks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on PrizePicks for a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.